Okay, we're going to do the June 2008 paper 3, and you're going to perform some clerical tasks for the company. So use a suitable software package, load the file, J8 phone. So go to ICT course, June 2008 paper 3, and J8 phone. I'll open that up. That's a CSV file, so it opens up in Microsoft Excel. This column needs to be made bigger, so I can base and column D has to be made bigger. So I can just select all the spreadsheets. See when the mouse changes, a different shape, double click, and it's all made bigger for me. Okay. In the department column, use a lookup function. To show the department name, use a decode column for the lookup value and the file J8 code for the array. Make sure you include absolute and relative cell referencing. Okay, before I start the lookup function, I open up J8 code. I make column B bigger. As you can see, this is a vertical table. It's not horizontal. Okay, it's not horizontal, it's vertical. So I know I am going to use a VLOOKUP, and my lookup decode column for the lookup value. So let's have a look. So this is the decode column, and I want to show in A7 the full department name. So I want to look up this value in this table. When I find a match, I show the adjacent cell in the second column. So let's get started with the function. I click in cell A7, I click on insert function, and I look for the VLOOKUP function, and I press go. Click on VLOOKUP and OK. So let's get started. My lookup value is B7. Do not choose B16 for your lookup value. Just a reminder, the lookup value will be in the same table as your VLOOKUP function. My table array is an external file, so I click inside table array first. I minimize my J8 phone, and I select from cells A2 to B13 in J8 code. Do not include the headings. I want to show the second column in this table, so I click in column index, and then I click on 2, and I want to show an exact match. So in range lookup, I type 0, and then click on OK. So let's make the column bigger. I double click in the corner, the mouse changes to a black cross, I double click, and it does fill down. So have a look at the function. Equals VLOOKUP, open bracket, B7, okay, which is MD. Check that in J8 code in the table array A2 to B13. When you find a match, you show the second column, and it has to be an exact match. So in this case, it showed managing director for MD. So when you find MD, it showed the second column, managing director. Okay, because we selected an external table array, it automatically put in the dollar signs in the array for us. So I've replicated the function already. Now I'll move on to step 3. Enter the following data into the model for C, IMP 1.1, 3, 1.6. So here I type in 1.1, then I type in 3, then I type in 1.6. Okay, name the cell containing 1.1 cheap, containing 3 Intel, containing 1.6 peak. So I've got to name some cells. So I click in cell 1.1 B2. In the name box, I call this cheap, and I press enter. I click in cell B3 containing 3. I call this INTL, and I press enter. I click in cell B4. In my name box, I call this peak, and I press enter. So I've named my 3 cells. Okay, you can show you've named the cells by clicking on formulas, name manager, and these 3 are my name cells: cheap, Intel, peak, and this is what it refers to: B2, B3, and B4. So close that. Okay, let's go back to the question. Format these cells as 1 decimal place, and I do this one as well. Format A2, A3, A4, so they're right aligned. So these cells have to be to 1 decimal place. I select them, right click, format cells. Okay, I click on number and reduce it to 1, and I press OK. these three cells, A2, 3 and 4, have to be right aligned. I select them and I click on the align text right icon. Use step number 7. Use a COUNTIF function that includes absolute and relative referencing in cell C7 to count the number of empty entries in the decode column. Do not count any entries in rows 1 to 13. So this told me what function I have to use. So in here, C7, I've got to use a COUNTIF. I want to check how many times ND, MD appears in this column, in this table at the bottom. So I click on insert function. I'm looking for the COUNTIF function and I click on go. Click on OK COUNTIF and OK. So my range would be the decode column. You got two decode columns here. So how would you know what the range will be? Okay, the range will be in a table outside the one you type in the function in. Okay, in this case. So I select D16 all the way to the bottom, D89. Okay, so that's my range, and I want to check that range for cells that match MD, which is B7, my criteria. My range has to be fixed, so if I select a column and I'm checking a criteria in a column has to be fixed. I can select the range and press F4 on the keyboard. It automatically puts the dollar signs in, which is called absolute cell referencing. No dollar signs in criteria, it's called a relative cell reference. I press OK and I double click in the corner to use fill down. Let's have a look at the function. Equals COUNTIF. So check the column B6 to B89 for the criteria B7, which is MD. Let's click on C11. So check the same column. I've used dollar sign, so the column hasn't increased, so it's still B16 to B89, but the criteria has increased. So the criteria has changed to B11. B11 shows HR. So this time I'm checking HR in the same column. And in this example, in C12, the column is the same. This time I'm checking the contents of cell B12, which is PU, in the same column. Okay, so you know you do not include rows 1 to 13 as well. So we've done all of that and we replicated the function. No, that's the... Okay, let's go to number 8. Use a function in cell D7 to calculate the sum of the duration column if the decode column contains MD. Do not include rows 1 to 13. Replicate this function means fill down. Okay. To sum the total duration for the decode. So let's read the question, let's figure out what we have to do. So in cell D7, I've got to use my formula in cell D7. So to calculate the sum, big clue here, the sum of the duration column. So the duration column is my sum range. If the decode column contains MD, so the decode column is my range, my criteria is MD. So I want to check MD in the decode column. If there's a match, I add the duration column. So let's have a look. So in cell D7, I want to use my formula. I'll show you through insert function. And this time I'm doing a sum if. I'm looking for, click on go, click sum if, and press OK. Okay, my range is said the decode column contains MD, so I select the decode column. Okay, my criteria is MD, which is B7. And my sum range, it told me to sum the duration column, which is select D16 all the way down to D89. I scroll back up. And the two columns, the range and the sum range, have to have absolute cell referencing. So I select the range and I press F4 on the keyboard. I select the sum range and then press F4 on the keyboard. The criteria got to be in a relative cell reference because we do not want to keep that fixed. I finish the formula, I press OK and double click in the corner to use fill down. Let's have a look at the formula. So it's equal sum if. check the range B16 to B89 to see if it matches the contents of cell B7, which is MD, and if it matches, then you add the column duration D16 to D89. Let's click on another example, D12. So equals SUMIF, the range B16 to B89. So our range has stayed the same. Our criteria has increased because this time we're checking PU in the range, and our sum range has stayed the same. So this is now correct. We use absolute cell referencing and relative cell referencing in the same formula. Okay, now we go to step number 9. In the units column, use the if function to calculate the units used. If the code is C, multiply the name cell cheap by duration. If the code is I, multiply Intel by duration. If the code is P, multiply peak by duration. If it's neither C or P, it should be 0. Okay, it told you to use the if function. But however, if it never told you to use the if function, you have to figure out, okay, what is the question telling me to do? It's telling you to do a logical test. The logical test is if is code equal to C. That's our first logical test. Our second logical test is code equal to I, and our third logical test is code equal to P. So I know it's going to be a nested if function. It's going to be 3 if functions in the same formula. An if function, okay, has a logical test. It also has value if true. So let's see if you can find value if true in the question. So if the code is C, then what needs to be in value of true? In value of true, you do a formula. You multiply the name cell cheap by duration. Okay, so that is our value of true if code is C. So if code is I, our value of true would be a formula. You multiply the name cell Intel by duration. And if the code is P, our value of true would be a formula. You multiply peak by duration. And an if function, so 2 paths we've identified. We've identified the logical test. We've identified the value if true. And the if function also has a value if false. Okay, and it told you in the question, if the code is not C or P, it should be 0. So we know, okay, we've got a logical test. We've got something to insert in value if true, and we got a value if false, so we're going to use an if function. So let's get started with the if function now. So in the units column over here, I want to use the if function. I show you through insert function. I type in if and go. I click on the if function and press OK. So my first logical test is D16, which contains code. Is that equal to, and I click in cell A2 because A2 contains C. Okay, and I want to keep that fixed, so I select it and then press F4 on the keyboard. So for my first test, I always want to test if the code is C. So rather than typing in C myself in quotation marks, I clicked on a cell that contains C and I've kept it fixed. My value if true would be I multiplied the name cell cheap, multiply a star by duration. Okay, now I've got to do another if function for when the code is I. So I click in value if false, then I click on if over here, and as you can see, it starts another if function. My logical test now is C16 equal to I. I click in cell A3 because A3 contains I. I select A3 and I put that in $signs by pressing F4 on the keyboard. Okay, in my second logical test, I always want to test if the code is equal to I. So I want to keep the value, I want to keep A3 fixed because A3 has I in there. My value of true now would be multiply the name cell Intel, which is B3, times duration. Then I click inside value if false, and I have another if function. So I click on if, and it starts another if function. This time I'm testing if code is equal to P. So I click in cell A4 because it contains the letter P. I select A4 and I press F4 on the keyboard. to keep to put it in absolute cell referencing. My value, if true, would be multiply the name cell peak, which is B4, by duration. So now we've done my three logical tests. I've tested if code is C, code is I, code is P. Now it's time to complete my if function by typing in a value in value if false. So it said it should, if it's neither of these codes, the value if false should be, or the unit should be 0. So in value if false, I type in 0 and then I press OK. So that's completed my if function. I double click on the corner of the cell to use fill down, and that replicates it all the way down to the column. Alright, let's have a look at the if function. Equals if C16 equals A2. So C16 is P. If that equals C, then multiply cheap by duration, comma, if again, open bracket, our second logical test is C16. So I'm checking now if the value in C16 is equal to I. If it is, I multiply intel by duration, comma, if again, open bracket, our third logical test, I'm seeing the value in C16. If that's equal to P, then I multiply peak by duration. Let's have a look at the one below it. Alright, E17. So equals if C17. So if C17 has increased from C16, and that's correct because we know that C17 shows a new value. Okay, I'm going to check that if that's equal to A2, which is C. If it is, I multiply cheap by duration. In my second logical test, I check C17. Is that equal to I? If it is, I multiply intel by duration. And my third if function, my logical test, I check if C17 is equal to A4, which is P, and I multiply peak by duration. Okay. Format all cells in rows 1, 6, and 15 to be center aligned, and format all cells in 1, 6, and 15 to be bold. So I select row 1, have a look, the mesh changes to a black arrow, and I left click to select row 1. To select row 2, I press Control on the keyboard and left click the mouse. And to select row 15, I press Control on the keyboard and left click the mouse. So I've selected all three rows together, and because they're not next to each other, I use Control to make my selections. Now I make it center aligned and I make them also bold. Okay, let's go on to the next page. Format only the units column to no decimal places. So the units column here, okay, that's already there. It's already to no decimal places. But I can right click, format cells, I can choose number, and I can change the decimal places to 0 and I press OK. Set the page orientation to landscape, so I'll go to page layout, orientation, landscape. Save the data model and print the formula and functions. Make sure everything is fully visible and it fits on 1 page wide. Important here, it said 1 page wide, but it can be 3 or 4 pages tall. So bear that in mind, and you got to make sure you got your name, sender number, and candidate number in the header. Okay, so I click on formulas, show formulas. I select all my spreadsheet, double click on the first column, so the column widths increase automatically. Then I click on the office icon, print, active sheets, preview. At the moment it's 2 pages wide because the if function is not included on the same page. So I go to page setup, I fit to 1 page wide and I choose 2 pages tall. And as you can see, there is no name, sender number, candidate number in the header footer. So I can click on header footer. I can type the header footer in here. What you do is you click on custom header and you type the information in here. So in the left I can type my name, in the middle I'll type my candidate number, and on the right I'll type my center number, and then I press OK. I press OK, and there we go. It fits on 1 page wide and it's 2 pages tall. And I got my details at the top. I print, then I close print preview. Then I move on to the next question, set the page orientation to portrait. So page layout, orientation, portrait, and save the data model, print a copy of the sheet showing the values, make sure the contents of the cells are fully visible, and the printout is 1 page wide. Okay, so it just told me 1 page wide. So this time it won't need to show the values. So I'll take off show formulas before I save the spreadsheet. Click on formulas, click on show formula so it takes it off. I select the spreadsheet, I double click on column A so everything fits nice and tidy. Then I click on the office icon, save as an Excel workbook. Okay, you're going to save as an Excel workbook. So click on Excel workbook, make sure you're in your June 2008 paper free, variant free folders, and you click on save. So I've saved the spreadsheet as an Excel workbook. Okay, now I want to print showing my values. Okay, so I click on the office icon, print. Okay, I go to preview. As you can see, it's 1 page wide and 2 pages tall, so that's fine. And I got my information in the header. I will print, then I close print preview. Hide rows, number 17, hide rows 1 to 14, and hide column D. So have a look, the mesh changes to a black arrow. I select rows 1 to 14, right click and hide. I select column D only. Have a look, the mesh changes to a black arrow, right click and hide. Okay, interrogate the data to find all the items where code is I. Print this data. Interrogate means filter. I click on a heading. I click on data. I click on filter. I click on the drop down list for code. I take off select all. Click on I. Press OK. That's I've done a filter and it only shows where code is I. I click on the office icon. Print, and let's preview it. Okay, all the information is visible. I have my details in the header. I will print it, then I close print preview. Select all the data, leave the rows 1 to 14 and column D hidden. So to select all the data, I will remove the filter. I can click on clear and it removes the filter. Okay, and okay, 1 to 14 are hidden, column D is hidden. I've got to also hide now column C. So click on column C, have a look, it might change to a black arrow, right click, hide. So I hid another column. Interrogate this data to find all the calls that were made on the 4th of the 1st 2008 and whether D code is PU or SA. So 4th of the 1st 2008. So in date, okay, I'm looking for 4th of the 1st 2008. So I take off the 3rd and I take off the 5th. So this is the 4th of the 1st January 2008. I'm not looking for 3 and I'm not looking for 5. So I took them off. I press OK. That's 4th of the 1st 2008, and I got to look for where D code is PU or SA. So go to D code, I take off select all, I click on PU and I click on SA. So PU or SA, I press OK. That shows me all the dates, the 4th of the 1st 2008, and where the D code is PU or SA. Print this data, make sure your details are visible, your name, center number, candidate number in the header of the page. So I click on the office icon, print, I click on preview. Okay, all the information is visible. I have my details at the top of the page. I will print, then I close print preview. select from all of the data, so all of the data now. So I'm going to remove the filter, clear the filter. That's all my data. Only the data for department and total duration. Use this to create a vertical bar chart. Label a chart with the title, total duration for the department. Make sure the axes are fully visible and the axis labels are fully visible and has no legend. Save this chart in a format that can be imported into a presentation, and print a copy of this chart. Okay, so I have to unhide my columns first. So I select all the spreadsheets, okay, by clicking on the corner, and I can right click, I can click on unhide. So that unhides all my columns. Now I want to do the same for the rows. Make sure that all the spreadsheet is selected. This is the easy way of doing it. Right click in a row and then click on unhide. So it unhides all my rows. Now I've got to make a vertical bar chart only with the data for department and total duration. So department and total duration. I select department, I press Control on the keyboard, and I select total duration. Make sure, okay, I've got to make a vertical bar chart. So I click on Insert, Column, and I choose the 2D column bar chart. So it automatically inserted the bar chart in. I've got the department names and I've got the total duration on the y-axis. Okay, it says to me, make sure all the axis labels are fully visible. So I've got to name the axis labels. An easy way to do that would be click on Design, and from Chart Layouts I would choose this. I've got the title, I've got the y-axis title, I've got the x-axis title. This one I've got a legend. They tell me to include a legend, and there is no legend. Okay, so let's have a look at this one. I've got the title, I've got the x-axis title, I've got the y-axis title, and I've got no legend here. Let's click on it. It changes the format of my graph, so that's not acceptable. If there's any other one, no. So I would click on this one. It's got the title, x-axis, y-axis, and legend. Now I can click on Layout, I can click on Legend, and I can click on None. So I can remove the legend manually. So my x-axis would be called Department. My y-axis would be called Total Duration. And the chart title, Total Duration by Department. So I will edit the title, Total Duration by Department. Okay, that is complete. Save this so it can be imported into a presentation. So to import it into a presentation, you click on it, right click, you copy it, and then you open up your presentation and paste it. So to import a graph into a presentation, it's just a case of copying it from Excel and then pasting it into your presentation software. Print a copy of this chart and make sure your name, center number, candidate number on it. So I click on the actual chart, I click on the office icon, print, okay, select the chart, as you can see. Because I selected the chart, I go to preview, and it's only going to print my chart because I selected it, but I got to put my details on the chart. So I go to page setup, header footer, custom header. So in the left hand side I type my name, in the middle I can type my candidate number, and on the right hand side I can type my center number, and then I click on OK, and there we go. I print it, then I close print preview, and that's the question finished. So I save my workbook. Earlier on I saved as an Excel workbook, so all I have to do now is click on the save icon, I'll turn this off. I can turn off J9 code. That's my table array. I do not have to save that. Turn off the exam paper, and there we go. We have completed June 2008 variant paper 3.